Hey, what is going on, guys? This is SMEB Reviews, and we're going to do something a little different today. I have a couple albums that I really wanted to talk about, but I didn't think I should make a full video on. Some of them I don't think would get enough views. I don't think many people probably know these bands, or they're just small releases like compilation or live albums I wanted to talk about. So I'm going to do that today. I think I've got 5 albums, so let's get to it. Alright, first up is Green Day's compilation album, God's Favorite Band. This compilation album actually has a pretty good assortment of songs. It represents every album except for Dos, Trey, and their first album, but in general it does represent a lot of their music, and I think that it is a decent compilation. There are obviously songs I'd love to see on there or taken away, but for the most part I think it was a pretty good compilation of their hits and songs that fans love. I think there, of course, like I said, there could always be more, but I do think for the most part it's alright. There were 2 songs that were added, a reworking of Ordinary World and a new song, Back in the USA. Ordinary World is a duet with Miranda Lambert in this compilation, and honestly it's a pretty decent reworking of it. I think it sounds pretty good. My biggest problem comes from the fact that the mixing kind of made Miranda Lambert's vocals much more dominant than Billy Joe's are, and so that's my biggest problem with that song. It's primarily Miranda Lambert singing whenever they're both singing together, and it's not bad. It's not my. I probably still prefer the original version of it. Back in the USA is actually a pretty good song. It's a good protest song, and it sounds really good. It definitely does sound like a song off of Revolution Radio, that kind of sound. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, it's not their best song by any means, and I do think that it could be better, but for the most part, I do enjoy that song. I appreciate it, and I was happy to at least see a new song from Green Day, and I'm really excited to just get to talk about Green Day, because I really do enjoy Green Day. I think that this compilation album was pretty good. I do think that they could have maybe added a couple more songs or taken some away, because obviously like their big albums were primarily represented, which makes sense because they are the bigger and more successful albums, but also I would have loved to see some more songs from either those albums that weren't represented or from albums that deserve more of a spotlight, not just Dookie and American Idiot. But overall I think it's alright. I'm not going to give it a rating because most of these songs have already been out, and I'm not rating a compilation album. I mean, I enjoy all these songs, but I don't think that it's appropriate to rate a compilation album like this, so that's my thoughts on the album. Next is a tribute to Dan Fogelberg. He kind of dabbled in a lot of different genres, folk, a little bit of rock, everywhere. He did a lot of things in his career. And honestly, I like his music alright. I don't know a ton of it, admittedly, but when I saw this, it kind of came out of nowhere, only because Dan Fogelberg died about 10 years ago, and yes, I think it's good to make tributes to past artists and that kind of thing, but it kind of seems weird that it was released now because it's been so long since his death. But regardless, talking about the music, all of the artists, they were able to recruit some pretty big name artists. The Eagles, Garth Brooks, Train, there's some pretty big names on this compilation, and it's actually a pretty good representation of his music. I don't know every song that they were playing, admittedly, but every song seemed to have its own personality and kind of fit the style of the artist that was singing it. Unfortunately, some of the worst tracks were the Eagles track, which was sung by Joe Walsh. It just didn't seem to hit home. It didn't seem to do very much. And honestly, Train did probably Dan Fogelberg's biggest song, Old Lang Syne, and it just did not work. It did not work in any circumstance, because the song is slow and kind of sentimental, and Train reworked it so that it was a very up-tempo and fast song, and it sounds alright. I think their rendition sounds good, but when you get to the heart of what the song's about, it doesn't fit with the message. Overall, though, it's alright. Again, I don't think I'm going to give a rating for this, just because I'm not rating Dan Fogelberg's songwriting. I'd be talking about the artist's covers of them, and I just don't think you should. I mean, covers seem like a hard thing to rate, really, so I'm not going to rate this one either, but I did enjoy it, and I think some of these songs were actually very well done. Alright, this is the last album I'm talking about that I will not give a rating. The last 2 I will. This is Bleachers MTV Unplugged, and I'm sure everyone is so sick of me talking about Bleachers. I've made 3 individual videos about them, and here's a 4th with them in it. Honestly, it was really good, and I don't just say that because I am a fan. Just looking at it critically, is a very well done live album because every song is reworked. It's not just an acoustic guitar now with everything else the same, just, you know, a little scaled back. Everything is reworked, and it does sound very good. Every song is just an alternative version and a different take on it, and gives some of these songs different meanings and different lights. And I really enjoy that. And I really enjoy when live albums, they'll talk to the audience and that kind of thing. And they did, and Jack did that wonderfully. All of these songs are very well recorded, and it all sounded pretty good. They even got, I mean, he had the likes of Carly Rae Jepsen and Lorde come in for their respective songs, and then Carly Rae also sang Shadow with him. And it all came together very well. I thought it was very good. Hate That You Know Me was a hard one, only because the drum loop was very loud and sounded kind of like it was added in post. That's probably the worst track, because it kind of did sound like it was added in post over the live version. Everything else, though, was honestly very good, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think that it was well produced, and I really enjoyed just the different ways that they performed these songs, and it was good. The only minor complaint besides that, Hate That You Know Me, is that primarily they played songs from Gone Now, and that I do enjoy Gone Now. Honestly, I think Gone Now is a much better album than Strange Desires, but it was much more represented, and I would prefer to have seen a little more balance between the two. But overall, that's just a little nitpicky thing. I thought it was a pretty good live album, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Again, like I said, no rating just because it's a live album. I'm not talking about the music, it's more about the live qualities and how do you rate a live song very well. I mean, but overall, yeah, I thought it was a very good album and definitely worth a listen just because everything is just a little different than it was on the studio album. Next up is Every Day is Christmas by Sia. And honestly, yes, this is a Christmas album, and I thought it would go off beautifully. I think Sia has a very nice voice and very powerful voice, and I thought that with her songwriting it would probably be more of a commentary on the, like, you know, the commercialism and all that kind of stuff of Christmas, and so I thought it would be a little more biting and maybe a little sarcastic about the season, but no, it's just filled with cliche after cliche, which, yes, Christmas songs are primarily cliches, honestly. A lot of the songs are, but those songs have also been established as classics, and this, as a new album, you've got to have that kind of thing to dig yourself in for a Christmas song so that people remember you, because after a year, I mean, after December, no one will be listening to Christmas music until, again, maybe next November or something. So it's really hard because it's going to be so forgotten because of that cliche sound that she had, and how none of the songs really had that staying power because, one, the vocal delivery is just not good. Two, there's no, like, nothing that makes you want to return because it is all just filled with cliches. And like I said, yes, the classics do have that, but they were already established as classics. They set the cliches, and she's just following them. It was a real shame, and honestly, I wanted to enjoy it. The title track, Every Day is Christmas, is actually very good, and some of the songs are okay. But unfortunately, it just does not really come through because it just does not have that staying power. And like I said, by next Christmas, the majority of people will have forgotten about this except for those diehard Sia fans. So unfortunately, I just can't really get into this album because of that. And especially, like I said, her vocals just weren't quite there. You'd think that she could use that power she has, but unfortunately, she just never really uses it. And it's a really weak album. And I know it's a Christmas album, so not everything should be contributed just to Sia herself. I mean, you can only do so much with Christmas, but honestly, I have a hard time listening to this, and I don't think any of these songs really have any staying power in general. So overall, I'm going to have to give this a 4 out of 10. The last album is Skyscraper Souls by the Downs Braide Association. And this album, honestly, is the reason why I wanted to do this, because I know not many people know about this band, so probably viewership would be low on an episode that I did about this solely, but I know this is a really good album, and I want people to know about it, and I really do recommend it. First off, before I say anything, it is a very interesting and fun album. It mixes both of their styles so well. Jeffrey Downs is a amazing progressive rock veteran. I mean, he's been in Yes. He is one of the founding members of Asia, and he was also the founding member of the Buggles, which probably not the best example, but an example that people know. And he is a really big name in progressive music, as well as Chris Braide, who has wrote songs for artists like Beyonce and Sia. So both of these artists are well versed in their genres, but obviously they are quite different. This album kind of brings those sounds together. It has those pop sounds that Braide brings, and the really advanced instrumentation and progressive sounds that Downs brings. And bringing them together is honestly very interesting. Now, I could see how it could alienate some people because fans of pop might not get into it because it's a little too progressive, and vice versa. But honestly, I wouldn't agree with that, only because yes, the instrumentation is very diverse and very, very advanced, and I really enjoy it. And it has those sounds of progressive music, but it also has those very nice hooks and melodies of pop music. And that's one of the things that I'm really enjoying about this album. It's a very nice jumping on point for fans that want to get into progressive music but have maybe had a hard time and don't know where to start. I think this is a great album because it really mixes those pop sounds that a lot of people are used to because of Braide's immense songwriting in a lot of very popular artists with that progressive veteran sound that Downs brings. And it is a very thoroughly good album. It's got a lot of interesting things. I mean, we've got Skyscraper Souls, which is over 18 minutes long, so you know it's going to be a progressive album. And it is progressive, and when you hear it, there is those sounds that you're familiar with when you listen to progressive music, but also has those great melodies, like I've said, and it is really catchy. Even an 18-minute song is catchy, and you really get into it. Now, yes, I honestly think Skyscraper Souls might be the worst song on here, not because of the length, but I just think it's probably a little too bloated, maybe, and just has a little, doesn't have that solid hook that the rest have. But honestly, every other song is extremely good, and I really, really enjoyed this album. I think it's a very interesting work because I didn't expect to hear something like that when I opened the album. Honestly, I was not familiar with the collaboration before. I did know both of the artists, but I did not know about the collaboration. And when I listened to it, I was pleasantly surprised. The vocals are very good, the lyrics are very good, the instrumentation is very good. I honestly do enjoy this album. I think it deserves a lot of praise. It's not perfect. I've heard better because of that mix of pop and progressive. Sometimes it does get a little muddled and kind of becomes hard only because you're hearing both sides and it kind of seems like they're conflicting, but most of the time they are supporting each other and really working together and working together well. I actually really do enjoy this album, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot. 5 random albums that came out of nowhere, but here they are. I just wanted to talk about them. They were things I wanted to make an episode about, but just could not have a full episode, honestly. So here they are. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Tell me if you actually like this style. I mean, I could probably do it more, but I've just never have so many albums I've wanted to talk about but didn't have enough to say all come out at the same time. But let me know if you like this kind of style of video, and I can probably do it some more, just not every week, obviously. It just depends when albums come out and that kind of thing. But thank you guys so much. It really does mean a lot. Leave any suggestions down below, and I'll see you guys later.